I am here with Dr. Erin English, and she is the Executive Director of Innovation for the San Diego County Office of Education, and she's been in education for more than 31 years. She started as an elementary school teacher, but a beautiful quote that she says drives her is from Edward Hale. "I am only one, but still I am one. I cannot do everything, but I can still do something. And because I cannot do everything, I will not refuse to do what I can." So, Erin, welcome.
Nice to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
And tell us, what does it mean to innovate in your office?
How I personally look at innovation is, how do I make things better for students that may have not been served well by our traditional system? So how I look at it is, what can we do that's better and different so that we reach every child? And that has been the push in my career since I was an elementary school teacher. Yeah, it's just how to make things better.
And I think as humans, we don't like change. So how do you drive change, and especially significant change? And maybe we can use COVID as an example, right? And you said you're the queen of Zoom, and Zoom, I mean, virtual learning for schools was traumatic on all levels. So tell us about how your community responded to COVID.
Okay, so let me also clarify. The queen of Zoom is in reference to the conversation we were having about being in a book club with some friends that I have been in a book club for over 30 years who are educators. So
that in itself is amazing. I can't imagine staying in connection, regular contact, reading books in a book club. That sounds fabulous.
So going back to COVID, when COVID hit, we had to transfer our learning and our books online. We moved online. So we started teaching each other. I started teaching some of these folks how to use Zoom. So you really understand the intricacies of trying to get people to do something different online. So your question was really packed. It was about change and COVID and Zoom. And so one of the things we had to do is meet people where they were at and understand that how am I going to move you from here to there without, I can't push you, I can't force you because you're not going to adopt it. So how do we move people in a way that is best for them? And that's kind of learning anyways. You know, you can't jump from A to Z. You have to take the steps along the way and find out where they're at coming in.
You know, one of the people on this interview series, he is the director of the Michigan Science Center, and he said something very beautiful. He said, learning is an act of vulnerability, because you're acknowledging that you don't know something, and that in itself, it makes you, and I think maybe that's part of why people are afraid of change. And like you say, showing them where they're comfortable, right? Like that is key. So maybe we can dive into this a little bit deeper. And you talked about children and families who may not have all the resources to do what they want to do. So how was it for you to reach all manners of families through COVID? And we know that many of them don't have devices, things like that.
So one of the luxuries I have, or honors I have, of working in San Diego County Office of Ed, as I oversee a school that is specifically for children who are experiencing homelessness. So the big red alert was March 13th, 18 so many months ago, is when all of a sudden school closed, and we thought, oh, what is going to happen to those children? So it was a crisis in my mind of, okay, how do we reach the children to make sure they have what they need to continue getting educated, to continue learning and having those opportunities. So the first thing we did at the time, and we've changed this thinking since then, but pivoted immediately, we had our project. It's called the Monarch Project, who is a beautiful partner of ours. It's a nonprofit. They purchase hotspots for all of our kids. So the parents, then they set up tables, resource tables for parents to come in and pick up resources for the families. And then they also picked up devices, the little hotspots. So with those hotspots, they had to train them how to use those as well. So they handed them an iPad or a device not an iPad, I'm sorry, a Chromebook and a hotspot. And they took them wherever they were going. So these kids were learning everywhere. They were learning in cars. They were learning in Starbucks. They were learning in parks. And they were learning. Those kids were learning. And one of the most fascinating things about it was I had some teachers tell me that they had never been more connected to their parents because the parents were learning alongside the kids. And they had never even seen some of these parents except for the first day they dropped them off. And it was because everyone was there. The whole family was there. Everyone was participating and learning.
Yeah, and I hope that I think there's a study that one of the interviews also did on what does it mean for underconnected families, and this was the biggest positive, that teachers could take a peek inside a child's life, right, and vice versa. I think the parents understood the teachers better. So what is your advice for educators who are interested in driving innovation in their communities?
Well, my advice would be is just try something. Just try something and try something different and new. And, you know, you had said something, Tara, you had said about being vulnerable. We were all vulnerable when this started. Mm-hmm. Even like just getting on the show and something didn't work. I think a year ago, I would have just been like, oh no, it didn't work. But you know what? Stuff happens now. And they have to understand that we're learning. We're all learning. And if we stop learning, we can't exude that excitement and that curiosity and that wonder anymore. We're not. But if we bring up something new and exciting, the kids feel that and they pick up on that also. So my advice would be keep learning and keep trying something new with kids. And so that they always see that you are a learner.
I think I also want to acknowledge that I think COVID has added a lot of newness, right? And new challenges, and that drains you as well. And so I'm curious, like, what have you found being effective? And I think teachers bear such a heavy load, and educators bear such a heavy load. What have you found effective as a balance where it's a long run? It's not like, oh, I'm just going to do this for a little bit, right? So, yeah, what is your advice?
I'm going to come in at a couple different levels. If you're a leader at a school, check in with your staff. Don't just check in about how they're doing with their academic side of it, but check in as a human being. Check in with your people. As a teacher, take care of yourself. Find balance. Find a place that find a happy place. Some people go running. I'm not a runner. My sister's a runner. Find your happy place. I do yoga. Find something that gives you that balance. But one of the real big things that I found during the COVID, when we all were completely shut down, is I made it an absolute point to meet with my staff as often as possible. And I'd set up space for them, and we would get on, and we wouldn't talk about the tasks of our job. We were talking about, how do you feel? And then we had all kinds of political things going on at the same time. And it became an area that we could make sense of it. And we started talking and getting to know each other. And we all got COVID animals. Everyone, like COVID puppies here, COVID kitten over there. And we got to know each other. So my advice is to slow down, get to know each other, find out how each other ticks.
Yeah, I think humans fuel us and inspire us, right? And that's why we exist. So I want to dive deeper into that book club that you mentioned. I think you just casually mentioned that, okay, we've been meeting for 30 years. I mean, that to me is insane, firstly. Yes. And the commitment. So tell us what keeps you together.
Well, as you mentioned, I'm in a book club. We started this book club in the very beginning of my career. It was the very beginning of my teaching career. It was like the second year. And the book, I can't remember the book, but it was a children's book. And we knew that we wanted our kids to read this book, but we hadn't read it. And one of my colleagues said, we should get together and talk about a book. And let's invite other people to talk about book. Let's buy this book because we had the book for the kids. Let's give the book to all the teachers. And we got together. Those same people from that conversation still meet with me And this is 28 years, 29 years later. We have one person that's keeping track of all the books and that we've read. So
how many books have you read?
Oh man, Matt! Oh,
that's like your log. You should show it to the kids. This is my log.
It's like it could fill up bookshelves. And you know, every once in a while, I'll be honest. Every once in a while, I can't read the book. I'm just too busy. So I just go because I just like listening to my friends talk, and I like how they think. And it's a group of educators, a group of teachers and librarians and office managers and aides. But they all of them have a love of learning. All of them have this, they like to travel. They love children. We all share those kind of things. And when things get rough, that's our group. That's our go-to group. We talk. And what's kept us together is just the camaraderie of having something so special that we keep plugging along with each other.
And food.
And we have lots of food. Well, right now we don't, but we do make it. We call it the book club. So we all have our, our food and our beverages there. But when we did meet before, we had extravagant food. Everyone, we bring. And sometimes we get to not talk about the book because we talk about all the food and we eat. And I don't know if I mentioned there's about 18 or 19 of us that are on the list. And we still have people that are on this list that have moved away, but we can't take them off the list. But we know they're there. We talk about them when hey, how do you think she's doing? How do you think she's doing? But we eat and we drink and we talk, and it's just such a beautiful thing. Thank you for asking about that.
Yeah, I want to be part of. I mean, I think that's refueling, energizing.
And Oprah's nothing on us. We Oprah started after we did. I think you get the idea from us.
And I'm sure it's not as close-knit as what you have.
That's right.
So I have a question. I mean, I think you mentioned there's a range of people in that book club brought together with a common goal. What role do you think ego plays in leadership, right? And there's your COVID puppy. And how do you handle that with learning?
Oh, wow. That's a great question, because when we give it's been a really beautiful movement with this group, because we're sharing opinions about something that's going on in a book, in a literary piece. So we'll have a book and we talk about it, and that book.
That's Greg's book.
So we'll talk about the book, and sometimes we don't agree with each other. So over the years, we have tempered our ego. So at first we came in and we wanted people to understand this is how you must feel. And so I think it has helped. That's a beautiful question, Tara. I think it has helped me grow as a human, because I know what could work in the perfect nirvana situation, because we don't always agree with each other. But how do we keep that conversation going? How do we grow with each other? And how do we I hear what you're saying, but here's what I'm saying. And then, I respect what you're saying.
Yeah. And even that's okay. Yeah, that's okay. Yeah, I think as a leader, I mean, I think that's something I'm very curious about, right? Like you want to drive, you have a vision, you want to drive people towards that common goal, but sometimes you got to balance it. So what is your advice? I mean, the story you gave about reaching children, that school that works with homeless families. I'm curious, what is your advice for education organizations who want to support underserved communities better?
Well, I would invite, if anyone's really interested in to see it done well and to see it done at its peak, I would say reach out to me, and I would love to give a tour of Monarch School in San Diego. It is the epitome of everything that could be done. We have a nonprofit that supports our educators. So we have the most phenomenal educators. Some of them have been there 20 years working with this population. So they deeply know that population. And they know how to serve traumatized children or children who've experienced trauma, and families. And they also, but then we have a group of support personnel. We have 35 staff members from our San Diego County Office of Ed, and roughly about 35 support members. And they do everything from counseling to family outreach to dance, theater, and then we have our educators. It's a K-12 program. So it is like the perfect unity of what could be possible in making sure all children feel accepted and wanted and welcome and important in an organization, because they specialize it. It's a beautiful thing. I would think the answer to your question, if you can't come visit me, is to make sure you're making every child needs to feel as important as all the other kids, regardless of where they're coming from, or regardless of what brought them to your threshold. They should feel as important as anyone else.
And I think, I mean, that goes for adult relationships too, right? Like respect for, which is probably what makes a good leader. So, Erin, what is one story that has inspired you?
Are you talking about a book or a story?
Sorry, a story of like maybe educator or something that kept you going last year.
I have a cute one. I had we got everyone online. This is after we hadn't done any type of online work at all. This is 1.5 years ago when we first got online. And we were kind of nervous thinking, wow, is it going to work? Our teacher's going to impact kids. And I had somebody, I think it was the office manager. She had created an interactive video, because we had taught her how to do a video and put her video out there for everyone with Screencastify. So she did she wanted to show her website. And so she sent it to me. I believe it was one of the office staff, and they sent it to me. And she was so proud of this. And it was able to go out to all of the parents and the kids at the school on how to access her website. Then she was so excited about it. I thought, you know what? Bingo, we did it. It inspired me. We had another one where I was sent a video of a teacher doing, she actually recorded her Zoom lesson. And in the Zoom, she had the family got on. It was a lot of families, but then she spotlighted one of the families, as you could pull up one group. And it was the mother, the two little tiny children, and the kindergartner all dancing into this dancing songs. Like they were dancing about words. So she'd throw out a word and they'd all make up the words. So the mother and the two other babies and the daughter, and they were learning together, and it was beautiful. And I thought, oh, that was inspiring to me. That was just a neat story.
Yeah. And there's always a silver lining.
Yeah.
And I want to hang on to these silver linings.
Yeah.
Even, I mean, I think going back to school has been awesome I have 2 kids, but I think these are the kinds of connections that I hope that we continue to build on. So Erin, you're the perfect person to ask this. What is one book we should be reading to be better human beings?
I have had the pleasure, San Diego County Office of Ed partners with Remake Learning. And that's out of Pittsburgh. And it was created years and years ago. And one of the creators was Greg Bear, who works currently with the Grable Foundation. And he wrote a book called When You Wonder You're Learning. I just want to show that. It is a delightful, delightful book. And he was mentored by Fred Rogers' wife. And it brings in the story of Fred Rogers, who is somebody I didn't grow up with, but my cousins did. So I was always there putting the sweater on with the grandkid or my cousins, but it talks about just relationships and curiosity. And I would say if you're an educator, this would be one you want to read, because you want to keep
sparking. Or a parent.
Oh, thank you. Yes, Sarah. And a parent. Yes. And a grandparent. I'm a grandparent. You have to keep that wonder alive. The other one I want to bring up, there's 2, because I was thinking about, I read a lot, as you know now. The other one is called The Fearless Organization.
Oh,
and
heard of that one.
It's about creating psychological safety in a workplace so that you can make change. Because if you're fearful in your job, or you're fearful in how you interact with someone, always wondering what are they thinking of me? Or am I going to make a mistake? Am I going to lose my job? You can't innovate. And you can't put yourself out there to take the risk sometimes to make the difference and impact in a child's life. So I would say both of those are 2 books that I think, as educators, if you're a leader in an organization, you need to understand that your influence needs to be positive.
Yeah,
and that would be The Fearless Organization. If you're anyone should read that one.
Yeah, I totally agree. That was a delight. And Erin, last question. What should we be working on with intention this year?
I would say, personally, my intention is to listen more. Not during this interview, of course, but I have to talk more, so it's harder. But listen more to understand and to become the person that is reflecting on what somebody is saying, not on what you need to say or what, because you can't get stronger, you can't grow your organization if it's only about a single person's idea. But to listen more and to be able to give guiding feedback or to understand other people better is, I would think that everyone should do more of that. And because we have so many conflicting views in the world right now that sometimes it just stop and just listen.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I was reading the book that I think is recommended in Greg's book, The Art of Communication from Thich Nhat Hanh. I can't mispronounce his name. But yeah, I think listening is key, and sitting with that discomfort, right? Like where you may be wrong, and listening to that other perspective, which is different from yours. So Erin, thank you so much. This was an absolute delight. And I feel it was very fitting troubleshooting in the beginning, but absolute.
Is that I did have something on the background, and I didn't realize that when we turned this one on, that
it goes live.
I don't know.
Yep, it's all good. I mean, that's life, right? And there's a pot of gold at the end. So thank you so much, Erin. And I hope I'm going to read that Fearless Organization, but it's a great, maybe we got to talk about how to do an online field trip of the Monarch School. So you can show everybody what kind teaching and learning looks like.
You let me know when, and we will do it. It is a beautiful, I call it the magical place. It's a beautiful building down in downtown San Diego, and just such an amazing partnership and collaborative organization.
Yeah, I think everybody will benefit. All right. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Have a good weekend.